My name is Sherry Honkala. I have 2 children, and I've been setting up encampments for 20 years now around the entire country, because we live in a country that has over 1 million abandoned luxury units. Yet brothers and sisters tonight will be forgotten about. We'll hide under bridges, we'll sleep in cars. We have to stop being ashamed of being poor. We have to be proud of who we are, and we have to stand up and say that I'm a human being and I deserve housing, food, and clothing, and every basic human right.
Since she was a teenager, Sherry Honkala has had to break the law to survive. Today, she is a leader in a growing national movement.
I'm a national homeless organizer.
On the surface, Nashville's rezoned and redeveloped downtown business district looks clean and prosperous. But local organizers with the Nashville Homeless Power Project say that this sparkling image covers up a disturbing reality. Poverty and homelessness are growing, even though they have become harder to see. Over the last decades, American cities have been radically transformed. Legislation passed in the 1990s drastically cut eligibility for welfare and led to the dismantling of public housing. Nationwide, more than 2 million families have been cut from welfare rolls. 70,000 public housing units have been demolished, and 500,000 publicly subsidized apartments have disappeared. Here in Nashville, 3 public housing projects have been torn down, and a 4th is slated for demolition next year. CLEMMIE lived on the streets for years before becoming an organizer. She says that police are forcing the homeless farther away from downtown. She took us to a campsite that had recently been raided.
They done come in here and swept this out because you could tell how they had it built up, because that's how we make the house.
Out of necessity, poor people have to hide. Otherwise, they're going to get locked up.
I went across that river to sleep. Oh, I went across that river.
Homeless people have been criminalized. They can't be in any public parks. They can't sleep outside churches, outside public libraries. They can't be seen, and if they're seen, they're going to be arrested.
When I woke up, I had shackles on my feet.
While the police patrol downtown Nashville, Brian, his friends, and 3,000 homeless like them look for places to hide to sleep. Most mornings when they wake up, they go to a temp agency where they can get construction or office work.
These temp services, like this week here, there's no work. That starts back up next Tuesday. So next Tuesday we'll be down there working at nighttime.
You only get paid, what, like $5.15 an hour, depends where you're working at. It's hard to hold it. I mean, it's like you need underwear, that's gonna take half of your money.
I just hit my 60th birthday, and I was a victim of domestic violence. The homeless shelter didn't work for me, but you have a job, you go to work every day, you pay what you can afford to pay, as far as if you can afford anything, as far as housing.
To offset the public housing demolitions, the mayor of Nashville created a commission to end chronic homelessness. But that hasn't led to funding for housing units that local organizers say are desperately needed. The Nashville Homeless Power Project has invited Sherry down to help plan the first major homeless action in the history of Tennessee.
My homeless activity began when I was really little. My mother was a victim of domestic violence, and so I was removed from the household, and I was raised in 9 different institutions. I became a teenage mother. Then, I hit the all-time low. Because I had absolutely no financial resources to pay my rent, and we began living in a white Camaro. And then one night my car was totaled by a drunk driver, and that was my home.
In Philadelphia, Sherry began organizing in Kensington among the abandoned factories of American Street. For 2 centuries, American Street was the center of one of the world's most important industrial neighborhoods. American Street was home to hundreds of factories, employing tens of thousands of workers. Today, industry here lies in ruins. 46% of the adult population doesn't have a job, and union factory work has been replaced by drugs and crime.
Bam, we got a Wendy's. Bam, we got a social service agency. And here, Fix-A-Flat. Yes, the jobs are really happening around here.
With the erosion of U.S. manufacturing jobs, Americans filing for bankruptcy in record numbers, and credit card debt exploding, more and more workers are just a paycheck away from homelessness.
In this country, there is no safety net, and there is no security. You can be okay for 1 minute, and the next day you can be living out on the street, and nobody will give a damn about you.
Sherry's activism took a radical turn when she took over an abandoned house with her newborn son.
You're going to draw me one picture, 2 or 3 or 4. What's the deal?
I said, man, there is all these abandoned houses, and they keep the heat on in the wintertime so that the pipes don't bust. And so on 38th Avenue, one day, I went with some friends and we set up house. I called a press conference and said, this is me, this is my 9-year-old son, and we're not leaving until somebody can tell us where we can live and not freeze to death.
Come on, Poppy.
Despite the threat of arrest, Sherry's Kensington Welfare Rights Union has taken over more than 500 federally owned abandoned buildings.
It needs major work, but it's still a house.
Home occupation is a controversial and risky tactic that regularly results in clashes with city officials and the police. But for many of the homeless, like Tom, it is the only way to keep their families together and survive.
Because if you go to shelter, they separate the husband from the kids. You know, I ran into the Kensington Welfare Rights Union, and they put me in what we called at the time a reclaimed house.
We do housing takeovers because we have to. We have to regularly break the law in order to keep families together and keep them alive. There's thousands of families that have been impacted by this process, just here in Philadelphia, not to mention other parts of the country.
Back in Nashville, the Homeless Power Project is applying pressure in another way, encamping on the courthouse lawn during the mayor's budget address and demanding the construction of new public housing units.
Homeless encampments are another tactic that also meets the basic necessities. I mean, it's someplace for concrete where people can live, like right now, and it's a much more visible process.
If you don't do direct action, people won't see you. People don't want to see homeless people, and homeless people don't want to be invisible.
The mayor never showed, and the politicians who did come out had nothing new to offer.
I'm proud of you because you're speaking up and speaking out. You know, you don't see anyone committing any violence.
We're asking that you disperse and leave the park area. Those individuals who refuse to leave the park area will be arrested for criminal trespassing.
Going. Go hide. That's what they're saying. Go hide. Go be under a bridge. Or when these tents come down or whatever, hide under a bench. And we won't arrest you. We won't do anything to you.
Nice.
Because you will be quiet. And all over Nashville,
yes, sir.
we're gonna let it shine. Oh, all over Nashville, yes, we're gonna let it shine.
I haven't chosen this. I would love to be a better mother, hang out with my children, do other kinds of things like that. But it's like seeing people on a railroad track and the train is coming. Is that really a choice to push them out of the way? Because I feel an obligation that I have a responsibility to do something about it.
The human rights group Frontline Defenders has named Sherry one of the 12 most endangered activists in America. She has gone to jail over 200 times in her campaign to build a movement that puts an end to poverty, hunger, and homelessness.
There's hundreds of organizations. There's like another 7 organizations that joined this national movement last week. There's these spontaneous encampments that are springing up across the country. every single night in that same park and in every other park around the country, people will sleep tonight.
Yes.
And so we got to continue to fill the jail cells, to go on the marches and participate in the demonstrations until we end homelessness in this country.